Well, hello there.
Every once in a while, you want to write
What was that?
you want to write instead of just the way that we usually do parts. Perhaps you've discovered this on your own. You think to yourself, we want to have 4 people on our worship team singing, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. We sing most of our contemporary worship choruses, somebody on the melody, and then somebody sings a third above that melody, and then somebody sings a third above that part, or perhaps a third below where that melody is. In any case, we have 3 parts and they all go like this. When the melody goes up, everybody kind of follows and adjusts
the third or sixth or whatever they are.
And we sing parallel. Now you add that 4th person, that bass. So, wow, that's really going to sound good. Yeah. And the bass starts singing and says, I think I'm just singing the same thing as the alto.
Yeah.
Or, I think I'm just singing the melody here and I can't find another part. Perhaps you've been there.
Basses are feeling misused and out of place and like they're not contributing.
And you're saying to yourself, what's wrong? Soprano, alto, tenor, bass, they're supposed to be 4 parts, right? But I can only find 3. That's because there are only 3 notes in most triads. Call it a triad because it has
3
voices.
Notes. Meanwhile, if you have 4 voices,
soprano, alto, tenor, bass,
one of these is going to have to double.
Yep.
So let's talk about some doubling rules.
If we're going to try to write for 4 voices, and yet we're writing triads, something has to be doubled. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
But if we double the same thing every time, it doesn't sound better. It actually sounds a little bit weaker.
It's just going to sound odd.
So, through history, through the Common Practice period, what they did was to create a whole set of rules, which we're going to reduce to 5 playground rules. If the 4 of you are going to get along and sing this hymn together, you're going to have to follow these rules.
Yes.
And if you don't, then you're going to have chaos. And it's just not, it might sound okay, but it's not going to sound like a hymn. Mm-hmm. So here's the first one.
No following the leader.
No following the leader. You just said that.
You don't want to do this because it's going to cause parallel octaves or fifths.
Oh, and you don't want to have parallel octaves. See, when the 4 of you sing and the bass is singing the same thing as the melody, that's parallel octaves. Any octaves. 2 notes in a row that are an octave apart, or even a 5th apart, because the 5th is also a perfect interval, it suddenly has this kind of hollow sound. Almost sounds, I don't know, Japanese. It sounds...
But it definitely is not writing.
What's more, you don't want to have hidden octaves or hidden fifths. Those are a lot harder to find, but nonetheless, you don't want to have those. And that is where you come to an octave approached by the same direction, from above or below, or parallel fifths that were not 2 fifths in a row. It was maybe a 6th or an octave, and then you jumped and got to fifths. Suddenly, like your ear sort of says, something sounds, was that parallel fifths right in there? After you've sensitized yourself to it. We call that follow the leader, and you're not allowed to do it.
Nope.
If the 4 of you are going to get along, you're going to have to go different directions. You're going to have to work this out because you've got to go opposite directions. And if you think about it, when everybody goes parallel, root, 3rd, 5th, 2 chords in a row, you've got parallel fifths right there, don't you? Yeah, and that included that parallel fifth.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sound like a hymn.
Nope.
The second one is no bullying. Now we all know about bullying.
Nobody likes a bully.
Bullying is encroaching on another person's space bubble.
Yes.
You just purposely get a little too close to that person and irritate them by getting too close.
So don't do it.
Stay out of each other's space bubbles, okay? Just stay out of each other's space. If you're going to get along in here, you can't follow the leader, and you have to avoid being in each other's space bubbles.
And what we mean by no bullying is, say the soprano is singing their melody and they're getting here, and the alto is singing a third below them, but if the voices, they can sing unison at some point, but if the voices cross ever, that is a no. So crossing voices.
What's more, there is not just voice crossing, but voice overlapping, where the soprano had been one place and jumped up, and the alto jumps up to a spot higher than the soprano just came from, you can't do that.
Can't do that
You
either.
can't cross the space. So it's not just touching each other, it's invading each other's space bubbles. And the bubble lasts for one note beyond the one that you just came from.
And the easiest place to make this mistake is between your alto and tenor, because they're on two different clefs.
Don't blame us. We didn't make up these rules.
We're just saying them.
We're just saying, if you want it to sound like a hymn, these are things you have to do. If you follow those rules, you've got most of your
Pretty much all of
stuff
it.
done. But there are 3 more rules that kind of help to refine it a little bit. This third one is,
No teasing.
and this is also an important one because you remember how Mozart's parents used to wake him up in the morning? Going all the way back to lesson 1? You can't go to scale degree 7 and just leave it hanging.
You gotta
It's just
you
not
gotta
fair.
finish it. You gotta go
Scale
up all the
degree
way.
7. What's more, you can't double the 7th scale degree. You can sometimes double the 3rd of a chord. You can double the root of a chord. You can double the 5th of a chord. But the scale degree never to double is the leading tone because it so strongly wants to go. Go with what's the 4th rule?
Stay inside the yard.
And what that simply means is you've got to stay inside the normal range of each of the voices. A soprano has to sound like a soprano, okay? You write a high C for a soprano, the sopranos are screeching and they're not able to blend with the other 3 voices anymore. It's not 4 equal voices. So you have to stay within the natural range of each of the 4 parts, or else it doesn't sound right, or the balance isn't going to be right. It's easy to remember what the range is, the natural range of each of the instruments.
You only have to remember 2 notes.
2 notes,
C and G.
C and G. And you can see on the chart where those are. Middle C to that high G, that's the soprano range. An octave below that is the tenor range. That makes it easy. And G below middle C to the C above that is alto range.
Altos. The basses is just an octave below that.
Octave below that. So C's and G's. Just remember C's and G's. Stay within that range, and everything's just fine.
Rule number 5.
Stay in sight of each other. Stay in sight of each other. Don't just stay in the yard. You've got to watch out for each other. Except Billy.
Yes, Billy the bass.
Billy's older. He can take care of himself.
Yeah.
But the other 3 of you, you've got to stay in sight of each other.
So the soprano, alto, tenor are not allowed to have more than an octave between them. You can go up to an octave, but no more than an octave between those voices, because if you get that, then one voice just kind of sticks out and stands out like, oh, well, that's kind of strange. However, the bass is an exception because he's so low that he's never sticking out. He's just kind of rumbling.
And there are the 5 playground rules. Just to
There you have
review
it.
one more time. No follow the leader. No parallel octaves or fifths. No hidden octaves or fifths. No,
Bullying.
and that means don't overlap and don't cross the parts. And then
No teasing.
that means be careful about the way that you handle the leading tone. You can't double it, and
It has to resolve
It has to
up
resolve
to
up to
tonic.
8. Okay, and then
Stay inside the yard.
that means stay in the normal range of each voice, and then
Stay inside of each other, no more than an octave.
Except for
between
Billy.
voices. Except for Billy.
the last rule isn't really a rule. It's just an observation about life.
Manly men and girly girls are opposite.
They really are. Manly men, which is basses,
Yeah.
and girly girls, sopranos.
Yeah.
They tend to be opposite. When a soprano goes up, the best direction, strongest direction for the bass part is to go down.
down.
Okay?
Opposites.
Now it could stay the same. It could even go like parallel thirds or whatever. It can't go parallel fifths. But the strongest contrapuntal writing is contrary motion.
And that are it.